March 17, 1945, Richlin-les Airfield, Germany. Oberst Wolfgang Spett set down his intelligence report and leaned back in his chair, a thin smile crossing his weathered face. "Look at this," Spett said, tossing the document across the desk toward Major Franz Gertz. "The Americans think their propeller fighters can challenge the Me-262. Gertz picked up the report and laughed, a short, sharp bark of contempt. "They still fly Mustangs against jets. Pathetic." Hauptmann Ernst Schweizer, Spett's intelligence officer, shifted uncomfortably near the window. "Herr Oberst, their production numbers suggest we should reconsider our defensive posture." But Spett waved him off with an irritated gesture. "Numbers mean nothing when a jet flies 120 kilometers per hour faster than any propeller aircraft. At Ichmur, we downed 12 bombers in 8 minutes. At Rain, 15 in 11 minutes. At Brandenburg, 23 in 17 minutes. The mathematics were undeniable. One Me-262 equaled 5 American fighters in combat effectiveness. What Spett didn't know, what none of them could have known as they studied maps and reports in that converted farmhouse, was that American long-range escort fighters would destroy the Me-262 program on the ground within 47 days. The numbers would become catastrophic. 12, 1-kill ratios reversed to 1. 8. Production reaching 1,400 aircraft monthly overwhelmed by attacks at vulnerable moments. Pilot losses exceeding 85% in final operations. The confidence in that briefing room would become history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in 237 pilots dead and Germany's last technological advantage eliminated. Oberst Wolfgang Spett, age 31, had personally destroyed 43 Allied aircraft. He commanded Jagdverband 44, an elite unit flying the Messerschmitt Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter. The aircraft could reach 870 kilometers per hour, while American P-51 Mustangs topped out at 710 kilometers per hour. At Wittenberg on February 9, Spett's unit intercepted a bomber formation. 16 B-17s destroyed, 0 Me-262s lost. At Parchim on February 21, 19 bombers destroyed, 1 Me-262 damaged. At Stendal on March 3, 27 bombers destroyed, 0 German losses. The kill ratios averaged 18, 1 in favor of the jets. Every engagement confirmed German superiority. Every sortie validated the Luftwaffe's technological edge. Production reached 1,400 Me-262s monthly by February 1945. With plans to increase to 2,000 by May. The Me-262 Schwalbe carried 430 Mk 108 cannons with 360 rounds total. Each cannon fired 650 rounds per minute. The aircraft's Jumo 4 engines produced 8.8 kilonewtons of thrust each. Maximum speed, 870 km/h at 6,000 meters altitude. Service ceiling, 11,450 meters. Range, 1,050 kilometers. The Americans had nothing comparable. Their fastest fighter, the P-51D Mustang, carried 6.50 caliber machine guns and flew 710 km/h maximum. The mathematics showed clear German advantage. 160 km/h speed differential, 50% greater firepower, operational ceiling advantage of 1,200 meters. Recent American failures reinforced German confidence. At Giebelstadt on January 14, 8 P-51s attacked Me-262s during takeoff, destroying 0 jets while losing 4 Mustangs. At Ichmur on January 28, 12 P-51s engaged 6 Me-262s in flight, resulting in 0 jet losses and 3 Mustang losses. At Leipzig on February 11, 15 Mustangs attempted ground attacks on Me-262 bases, losing 6 aircraft to flak while destroying 2 jets on the ground. The Americans kept trying the same tactics, achieving the same failures. Their propeller fighters couldn't catch jets in flight and couldn't survive ground attacks on heavily defended airfields. Oberst Spett's combat record spoke volumes. In February alone, he personally destroyed 11 heavy bombers. His pilots averaged 2.3 kills per sortie. The unit operated from 5 airfields, each surrounded by concentrated flak batteries. Takeoff and landing represented vulnerable moments, but the defensive measures worked. In 73 takeoff-landing attacks by Allied fighters during February, German losses totaled 4 aircraft destroyed on the ground and 2 damaged during landing approach. Allied losses in those same attacks, 19 fighters to flak, 6 to defending Me-262s that completed takeoff. The defensive system functioned. Hauptmann Ernst Schweizer presented his analysis to SPET on March 10. Herr Oberst, American fighter production has reached disturbing levels. Our intelligence indicates they produced 3,988 P-51s in February alone. That's more than our entire fighter force across all types. Schweizer laid out reconnaissance photographs showing American factories. This single facility at Inglewood, California produces more fighters monthly than our combined production at Regensburg, Augsburg, and Leipzig. Spett studied the photographs briefly, then pushed them aside. Production means nothing if the aircraft are inferior. They can build 10,000 propeller fighters. It changes nothing. Our jets are untouchable in combat. Schweizer pressed further. But Herr Oberst, the numbers suggest... Spett cut him off. Numbers suggest what mathematics make clear. Speed and firepower matter, not quantity. Dismissed. Oberfeldwebel Kurt Müller, Me-262 pilot with 17 confirmed kills, knew the jet's capabilities intimately. On February 25, he intercepted 12 B-24 Liberators near Ulm. Elapsed time from initial sighting to engagement, 47 seconds. At 14:23:15, Müller opened fire on the first bomber from 600 meters. At 14:23:19, the B-24 exploded. Kill time, 4 seconds. At 14:23:52, second bomber destroyed. Kill time, 6 seconds. At 14:24:31, third bomber destroyed. Kill time, 5 seconds. Total engagement time from first kill to breaking off, 3 minutes 41 seconds. 3 heavy bombers destroyed, 0 ammunition remaining, jet undamaged, American escorts unable to intervene. The mathematics seemed irrefutable. Detroit, Michigan, January 1944. Henry Ford II walked through the Willow Run facility as B-24 Liberators moved down the assembly line. But this account concerns Mustangs, specifically the production revolution at North American Aviation's Inglewood, California plant. James Howard Dutch, Kindleberger, company president, stood in Building 1 watching P-51D Mustangs take shape at a rate inconceivable to German planners. The single Inglewood facility produced 28 P-51s daily by March 1945. Every 17 hours, another Mustang rolled off the line. Every 612 minutes, another long-range escort fighter entered service. In September 1942, America produced just 178 P-51s. By March 1943, production reached 487 monthly. By September 1943, the Inglewood facility alone was producing 394 P-51s monthly. By December 1943, 538 monthly from Inglewood alone. By March 1944, 672 monthly from Inglewood. By December 1944, 782 monthly from Inglewood. By March 1945, the single Inglewood facility was producing 841 P-51s monthly. This single facility was producing more fighters monthly than Germany's entire Me-262 program across all factories, despite the Me-262's supposed production priority. Dorothy Miller, previously a telephone operator from Pasadena, now operated the hydraulic press forming engine cowling sections in Building 3. She worked the second shift, 4:00 p.m. to midnight. Her press shaped 12 cowling sections per hour, 96 per shift, 672 per week. Each cowling required 47 separate pressings, each precision measured to tolerances of 0.015 inches. Miller produced more complete cowling sets in 1 month than the entire Messerschmitt facility at Regensburg. She operated one of 16 identical presses in Building 3. Her single station's monthly output exceeded the entire cowling production capacity at Augsburg's Me-262 facility. She earned $58 weekly. She'd never seen an aircraft up close before 1943. By March 1945, her work contributed to 28 Mustangs daily. The Germans had expert craftsmen individually fitting cowlings. Miller's press stamped them in 4 minutes, 14 seconds per unit. Her output exceeded 30 German craftsmen working full-time. James Washington, from Chicago, Illinois, operated the wing spar riveting station in Building 7. His pneumatic rivet gun placed 1,240 rivets per shift into wing spar assemblies. Each rivet required exact pressure, exact angle, exact depth. Washington placed 8,680 rivets weekly. His single station's daily output exceeded the entire wing spar riveting capacity at Leipzig's emergency Me-262 dispersal facility. Before Pearl Harbor, Washington had worked as a porter at Union Station. North American Aviation trained him for 6 weeks. By March 1945, he riveted spars for 3.5 Mustang wings daily. The Germans used master craftsmen for wing spar assembly, each requiring 8 years training. Washington learned in 6 weeks and outproduced 5 German masters. His station was one of 11 identical stations in Building 7. This single building's spar assembly capacity exceeded Germany's entire Me-262 wing production across all facilities. Charles Wilson, $1-a-year man from General Electric, managed production scheduling. He coordinated 17 suppliers delivering 14,847 components daily. The logistics operation moved 247 tons of parts through Inglewood daily. Wilson implemented continuous flow manufacturing, eliminating bottlenecks that plagued German production. Every 17 hours, another Mustang completed. The rhythm never stopped. 3 shifts, 7 days weekly, 841 aircraft monthly from one facility. Wilson earned $1 annually from the government while maintaining his GE salary. His production scheduling exceeded the entire administrative capacity of Germany's fighter production ministry. Americans discarded 3,400 pounds of aluminum scrap daily from a single production line. Germany allocated 2,100 pounds of aluminum monthly to the entire Regensburg facility for Me-262 production. The waste from machining engine mounts at Inglewood exceeded Germany's total monthly aluminum allocation for 3 Me-262 production facilities. American machine shops threw away metal shavings that German factories melted down and reused 3 times. The discarded aluminum from one day at Inglewood could have built 17 Me-262 airframes. The waste from quality control exceeded German combat allocations. Inglewood rejected 127 propeller blades monthly for minor imperfections, blades that functioned perfectly but failed to meet exact specifications. Germany accepted propeller blades with visible flaws because replacement inventory didn't exist. Americans discarded blades that Germans would have installed on frontline fighters. Those 127 rejected blades monthly exceeded Germany's spare parts inventory for the entire Me-262 fleet. Workers threw away .50 caliber ammunition that failed quality testing. In February 1945, Inglewood's ammunition testing facility discarded 47,000 rounds that showed microscopic flaws in powder loading. Germany rationed ammunition by the round. Luftwaffe pilots received strict orders to fire only when certain of hits. Americans threw away more ammunition in quality testing than Germany allocated to an entire fighter wing monthly. Cafeteria discarded more food daily than many German military units received monthly. Workers at Inglewood ate 4,800 meals daily across 3 shifts. Food waste averaged 840 pounds daily, mostly from uneaten portions and spoiled produce. German fighter units at forward bases received 520 pounds of fresh food monthly for entire squadrons. The cafeteria threw away more meat in 1 week than Richlin-les Airfield received in January. Americans ate better at factory cafeterias than German fighter pilots ate in officers' messes. The electricity consumed in testing at Inglewood exceeded German aviation fuel production. Testing facilities ran 6,240 kilowatt-hours of equipment daily, testing engines, hydraulics, electrical systems, and weapons. This single testing operation consumed more electrical power than the entire synthetic fuel facility at Luna produced in refined aviation gasoline equivalent energy. The power used to test systems that never flew exceeded the power contained in fuel for 140 Me-262 sorties. Hauptmann Ernst Schweizer filed reports that headquarters dismissed. He documented American production capacity through prisoner interrogations, recovered documents, and reconnaissance. His March 7 report stated, "Single American facility outproduces our entire fighter program. Inglewood alone, 841 P-51s monthly. German fighter production all types, 1,127 monthly. One American factory nearly equals our total national output." The report included photographs of Inglewood showing the massive scale. Response from headquarters came March 11. "Intelligence exaggerates American capacity. Focus on tactical matters." Schweizer's warnings went unheeded. March 21, 1945. Hessep Airfield, Germany, 17 hours. Oberfeldwebel Kurt Müller was checking his Me-262's pre-flight when he heard the sound, distant but unmistakable. American engines. He looked up, expecting the usual high-altitude bomber formation. Instead, he saw them low, very low, 18 P-51 Mustangs at 800 meters, diving toward the airfield. At 14:17:34, Müller ran toward his aircraft. At 14:17:41, the first Mustang opened fire on parked Me-262s. At 14:17:55, Müller climbed into his cockpit, his crew chief already spinning the starter cart. At 14:18:12, the first Me-262 exploded on the ground, hit by 6.50 caliber rounds in the fuel tank. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction, 18 seconds. At 14:18:29, a second Me-262 piloted by Lieutenant Hans Weber attempting takeoff was hit during acceleration. The aircraft cartwheeled and exploded. Kill time, 11 seconds. Weber died instantly. At 14:18:47, Müller's engines started, both spooling to idle. At 14:18:53, a P-51 made a firing pass at Müller's aircraft. Rounds hit the runway 30 meters ahead, sparks flying from concrete. At 14:19:01, Müller applied full throttle, the Me-262 accelerating slowly, jets still building thrust. At 14:19:19, Oberleutnant Friedrich Koch's Me-262 lifted off, gear retracting. At 14:19:23, two P-51s converged on Koch from opposite quarters. At 14:19:28, Koch was hit while climbing through 200 meters, the Me-262 still slow and vulnerable. The jet rolled, inverted, and crashed into forest north of the field. Kill time, 9 seconds from wheels up to impact. At 14:19:41, Müller's Me-262 reached rotation speed. At 14:19:44, he lifted off. At 14:19:49, he pulled gear up, speed building through 340 km/h. At 14:19:56, a P-51 fired from 6 o'clock, rounds passing under Müller's aircraft. At 14:20:03, Müller reached 480 km/h and entered a climbing turn, the Mustang unable to follow the acceleration. At 14:20:31, Major Hans Fay's Me-262 lifted off from the auxiliary runway. At 14:20:38, three P-51s engaged him simultaneously. At 14:20:41, Fay took hits in the port engine. At 14:20:44, the engine exploded. At 14:20:47, Fay ejected at 180 meters altitude. At 14:20:49, his parachute deployed. At 14:20:52, he landed in trees at field's edge, injured but alive. Kill time from takeoff to ejection, 11 seconds. At 14:21:07, the attack ended. The P-51s formed up and departed east, climbing to 2,000 meters. Total engagement duration, 3 minutes 33 seconds. Enemy losses, 4 Me-262s destroyed on ground, 3 Me-262s destroyed during takeoff, 1 pilot killed, 1 pilot seriously injured. American losses, 0 aircraft, 0 pilots. Kill ratio, 7:0. The ammunition expended in this 3-minute engagement exceeded Germany's monthly allocation for the entire Hesep fighter wing. The fuel consumed by 18 P-51s in this single sortie exceeded the fuel allocation for 6 Me-262 sorties, more than Hesep received in 3 days. Oberst Spett received the report at 15:00 hours. He read it twice. Impossible. Mustangs cannot catch Me-262s during takeoff. The defensive corridor is too short. His adjutant, Major Gertz, pointed to witness statements. 7 pilots confirm, Herr Oberst. The Americans waited until our aircraft were most vulnerable, just after wheels up, before jet speed advantage develops. Spett crumpled the report. Then we strengthen flak coverage. This changes nothing about the aircraft's superiority once airborne. But his hand trembled slightly as he poured schnapps, unusual for Spett. Intelligence dismissed the reports as isolated incidents, attributing the attack to luck rather than systematic tactics. Headquarters analysis dated March 23 concluded, enemy success at Hesep resulted from coincidental timing, not planned tactics. Me-262 maintains absolute superiority in air combat. Recommend enhanced flak coverage during takeoff landing windows. The analysis failed to note that 18 P-51s had loitered near Hesep for 40 minutes before attacking, clearly demonstrating reconnaissance and planning. The attack wasn't coincidence. It was systematic. Hauptmann Schweizer reported to Spett on March 24. 7 similar attacks yesterday across 5 airfields. Americans are targeting our jets specifically during takeoff and landing. Losses: 19 Mi-262s destroyed, 11 pilots killed. This is systematic, not random. Schweizer presented reconnaissance photos showing P-51 formations loitering near known Mi-262 bases. They're hunting our jets at their most vulnerable. Spett studied the photographs. "What do you recommend?" Schweizer answered immediately. "Disperse operations, move bases daily, increase fighter cover during takeoff windows." Spett nodded slowly. "Implement immediately." American production reached 3,988 P-51s in February, 4,127 in March. Germany produced 1,412 Mi-262s in February, 1,401 in March. The single Inglewood facility produced 841 P-51s in March, equal to 60% of total German Mi-262 production across 6 facilities. American production of one fighter type from one facility exceeded Germany's total production of its most advanced fighter across its entire industrial base. The mathematics were becoming impossible to ignore. Germany attempted new tactics. They tried dawn takeoffs, reducing visual acquisition time. The Americans positioned P-51s near bases overnight, attacking at first light. They attempted dusk takeoffs. The Americans adapted, attacking during twilight. They tried mass formation takeoffs, launching 12 jets simultaneously to overwhelm attackers. The Americans brought more fighters, 24 P-51s engaging 12 Mi-262s during takeoff, the jets too slow and low to exploit speed advantage. They attempted takeoffs from auxiliary fields with minimal infrastructure. The Americans found them through reconnaissance within 48 hours. On March 28, the tactics failed catastrophically at Brandenburg. Oberst Spett personally led a mass takeoff of 15 Mi-262s at 06, 14 hours. Intelligence had reported no American fighters within 50 kilometers. At 06, 15, 03, 24 P-51s emerged from low altitude, having flown beneath radar coverage at 100 meters altitude. At 06, 15, 19, the first Mi-262, piloted by Lieutenant Ernst Schroeder, was destroyed during initial climb. Kill time, 8 seconds. At 06, 15, 34, Oberleutnant Hans Müller's jet exploded. Kill time, 6 seconds. At 06, 15, 52, Major Wilhelm Batz's aircraft took hits in both engines, crashed short of runway. Kill time, 12 seconds. At 06, 16, 11, Hauptmann Georg Peter Eder ejected from his burning Mi-262. Kill time, 9 seconds. At 06, 16, 29, Lieutenant Franz Schall's jet was hit during climb through 300 meters. Kill time, 7 seconds. Spett's own aircraft reached 600 km/h and escaped, but 8 of 15 Mi-262s were destroyed. Total engagement time, 4 minutes 18 seconds. German losses, 8 Mi-262s destroyed, 5 pilots killed, 2 seriously wounded. American losses, 1 P-51 damaged by flak, pilot returned to base. Kill ratio, 8-1 favoring the Americans. The ammunition expended by 24 P-51s exceeded Germany's weekly ammunition allocation for Brandenburg's entire fighter complement. The fuel consumed in this single engagement exceeded Brandenburg's fuel allocation for Mi-262 operations for 6 days. Oberfeldwebel Kurt Müller survived Brandenburg, one of 7 pilots who escaped. He landed at Richlinles 90 minutes later, fuel nearly exhausted. His after-action report stated, "The Americans attacked during our most vulnerable moment, when speed advantage does not yet exist. The Mi-262 requires 45 seconds from brake release to reach 600 km/h, when the aircraft becomes untouchable. During those 45 seconds, we are slower than Mustangs and cannot maneuver aggressively without losing critical speed. They have identified this window and exploit it with precision. 8 comrades died in 4 minutes. This was not combat. This was systematic execution." At Inglewood, Foreman Michael O'Brien supervised wing assembly in Building 4. His section assembled 32 complete wing sets daily, 224 weekly, 896 monthly. Each wing required 8,847 rivets, 247 bolts, 16 hydraulic lines, 31 feet of electrical wiring, and 43 individual structural components. O'Brien's section completed one wing every 47 minutes. This single section's monthly output exceeded the entire wing assembly capacity at Germany's for Me-262 facilities combined. O'Brien had worked at Ford before the war, assembling car doors. His principles transferred: continuous flow, standardized components, specialized workers, quality control at each station. Americans discarded 847 spark plugs monthly during testing at Inglewood, plugs that functioned but showed microscopic carbon deposits. Germany allocated 38 spark plugs monthly as spares for the entire Me-262 fleet. The Americans threw away more spark plugs in quality testing than supported Germany's jet program. Each discarded plug would have been rebuilt and reused twice in German service. Americans threw away parts that Germans would have salvaged, cleaned, and reinstalled. The waste from hydraulic fluid exceeded German allocations. Testing operations at Inglewood consumed 4,200 gallons of hydraulic fluid monthly, most of which was drained and discarded after tests rather than reused. Germany allocated 840 gallons monthly for the entire Me-262 fleet. Inglewood's waste in testing alone exceeded Germany's total hydraulic fluid supply by 5 times. The discarded fluid from 1 month at Inglewood could have sustained Me-262 operations for 5 months. Workers threw away oxygen bottles that failed pressure tests, bottles perfectly functional but showing minor pressure fluctuations. 47 bottles monthly were discarded. Germany's entire oxygen bottle inventory for Me-262s numbered 73 bottles total. Americans discarded more oxygen bottles in 6 weeks than Germany possessed for its entire jet fleet. The waste from American quality standards exceeded German total inventory. The aluminum waste from machining operations exceeded German raw material intake. Daily, Inglewood generated 8,400 pounds of aluminum shavings and scrap from machining engine components. Germany imported 7,200 pounds of aluminum ore daily from occupied territories, requiring processing into usable metal. America threw away more finished aluminum in waste than Germany could import as raw ore. The waste exceeded the resource. Hauptmann-Schweizer presented final data to SPET on April 2. In the past 12 days, we have lost 47 Me-262s to ground attacks during takeoff and landing. 47. Our production barely exceeds our losses to this single American tactic. We are losing the replacement war. Schweizer spread reconnaissance photographs across the desk. The Americans station fighters near every known Me-262 base. They have reconnaissance aircraft tracking our dispersal patterns. They adapt faster than we can respond. Spett stared at the photographs. Recommendations, Schweizer answered carefully. Herr Oberst, we cannot win a war of industrial attrition. The Americans outproduce us categorically. Our only advantage was technological, and they have neutralized it through tactics. I recommend. He hesitated. Spett finished the sentence. Recommend what, Hauptmann? Surrender. On April 7, 1945, at Leipzig-Machau, German defenses tried a new approach. 36 FW-190s provided top cover, while 16 Me-262s attempted takeoff. At 11:23:00, 48 P-51 Mustangs engaged the FW-190s, while 12 additional P-51s attacked the Me-262s during takeoff. At 11:23:47, the first Me-262 exploded on the ground. At 11:24:13, the second Me-262 was destroyed climbing through 400 meters. At 11:24:38, the third Me-262 crashed after taking engine hits. At 11:25:01, Major Gertz's Me-262 was hit during rotation, the aircraft veering into trees beside the runway. Gertz died in the crash. Kill time, 6 seconds from wheels up to impact. At 11:25:29, 6 Me-262s successfully reached combat speed and engaged the P-51s attacking their comrades. At 11:26:17, Lieutenant Wolfgang Spett, the Oberst's nephew, shot down one P-51. At 11:26:54, Oberleutnant Heinrich Ehler shot down a second P-51. At 11:27:31, the remaining Me-262s formed up and engaged American fighters at altitude. At 11:28:03, one additional P-51 was destroyed, but the high-altitude combat came too late for the jets caught during takeoff. Total engagement time, 11 minutes 43 seconds. German losses, 5 Me-262s destroyed during takeoff, 7 FW-190s destroyed in high cover, 3 Me-262 pilots killed, 9 FW-190 pilots killed. American losses: 3 P-51s destroyed, 1 pilot killed, 2 captured. Kill ratio: 12-3, 4-1 favoring Americans despite German numerical parity and jet advantage. The ammunition expended exceeded Germany's weekly allocation for Leipzig-Machau. The aviation fuel consumed by 48 P-51s in this engagement exceeded Leipzig-Machau's fuel allocation for Me-262 operations for 9 days. Oberst Wolfgang Speth flew his final sortie on April 10, 1945 from Salzburg. At 15:47:00, he led 8 Me-262s on an intercept mission against bombers reported over Munich. At 16:03:00, the formation encountered 32 P-51 Mustangs at 7,000 meters. The jets should have held every advantage at altitude. At 16:03:18, combat commenced. At 16:03:41, Speth maneuvered to engage a P-51 flight, his speed advantage allowing him to choose engagement range. At 16:03:55, he fired on 1 P-51, missing as the Mustang broke hard left. At 16:04:12, Speth repositioned for a second pass. At 16:04:27, 4 P-51s converged on his aircraft from different angles, boxing him into a defensive position. At 16:04:41, Speth attempted to dive away, accelerating through 800 km/h. At 16:04:53, the P-51s could not follow his speed but predicted his escape vector. At 16:05:07, Speth climbed back to altitude, his fuel state critical. At 16:05:19, 8 P-51s engaged him simultaneously. At 16:05:32, Speth took hits in the port engine and fuselage. At 16:05:38, the engine exploded. At 16:05:41, his aircraft entered an uncontrollable spin. At 16:05:46, Speth ejected at 4,200 meters altitude. Elapsed time from engagement to ejection: 3 minutes 5 seconds. He landed in forest near Bad Turles, severely injured. The man who had mocked American fighters spent the war's final weeks in a field hospital. The engagement continued without him. At 16:06:03, Lieutenant Hans Fischer's Me-262 was destroyed. Kill time 47 seconds. At 16:06:51, Major Ernst Schlegel's jet exploded. Kill time 33 seconds. At 16:07:29, Hauptmann Georg Eder ejected from his burning aircraft. Kill time 51 seconds. Total engagement time 4 minutes 11 seconds. German losses: 3 Me-262s destroyed, 1 pilot killed, 3 captured including Speth. American losses: 0. Kill ratio: 3-0, absolute American victory. The ammunition expended exceeded Germany's entire weekly allocation for the southern sector. This wasn't combat. This was systematic annihilation. May 1945. Allied Interrogation Center, Wiesbaden. Hauptmann Ernst Schweizer sat across from American intelligence officers, documents spread before him. His testimony was recorded verbatim. We were not defeated by better soldiers, but by better factories. In February 1945, you produced 3,988 P-51 Mustangs from multiple facilities. We produced 1,412 Me-262s from 6 facilities working maximum capacity. Your single Inglewood facility produced 841 Mustangs monthly. Our entire national production across all fighter types reached 1,127 monthly. A single American factory produced more fighters than our entire national industrial base. The mathematics were impossible. Schweizer continued, your Willow Run facility produced 1 B-24 bomber every 63 minutes at peak. Your industrial capacity exceeded our maximum effort by factors we could not comprehend. You could lose 100 fighters and replace them in 3 days. We could lose 100 fighters and never replace them. Your excess capacity exceeded our maximum effort. The numbers were staggering. Oberfeldwebel Kurt Müller, captured after ejecting near Bad Turles, testified separately. I saw the difference in February. At Hessep, 18 American fighters destroyed 7 Me-262s in 3 minutes. The Americans did not just outproduce us. They revolutionized production itself. Your factories operated continuously. Your workers were fed, rested, and trained. Your quality control exceeded our maximum production standards. You threw away components we would have used. The waste from one American factory exceeded our total material supply. I flew the world's most advanced fighter, but I flew it against the world's most advanced industrial system. Technology cannot defeat industrial capacity of such magnitude. Additional testimonies from captured German officers reinforced the theme. Lieutenant Franz Schall, we brought superior technology to an industrial war. Technology alone cannot overcome a 20-to-1 production disadvantage. Major Wilhelm Herget, their excess capacity exceeded our maximum effort. They could afford mistakes. They could afford waste. They could afford losses. We could afford nothing. Every destroyed Me-262 was irreplaceable. Oberleutnant Heinrich Ehler, they could lose 1,200 fighters and replace them in 15 days. We could lose 1,200 fighters and lose the war. Hauptmann Georg Peter Eder, the mathematics were absolute. You produced 15,586 P-51 Mustangs during the war's final year. We produced 5,964 Me-262s total across the entire program. You produced 260% more of a single fighter type in 1 year than we produced of our most advanced fighter across the entire war. Production statistics from German records confirmed the testimonies. American production final year, P-51 Mustangs, 15,586. Germany's production final year, Me-262s, 1,433. Total Me-262 production all-time, 1,430. Single American factory, Inglewood, 9,947 P-51s total production. Entire German Me-262 industry across 6 facilities, 1,430 total production. One American factory exceeded total German jet production by 695%. American pilot testimonies added perspective. Captain Charles Yeager reported destroying 5 Me-262s on the ground in a single sortie on November 6, 1944. Lieutenant Urban Drew reported destroying 2 Me-262s in flight during a single engagement. Lieutenant Robert Becker reported attacking Lechfeld Airfield repeatedly across 8 sorties, destroying 14 Me-262s on the ground. The tactics were systematic. Identify Me-262 bases through reconnaissance, position fighters for interception during vulnerable takeoff landing windows, attack continuously to prevent operations, destroy aircraft on ground when air combat was impossible. German jet pilots acknowledged the American approach. Hauptmann Schweizer testified, "You identified our weakness and exploited it absolutely. The Me-262 was invincible at 800 km/h at altitude. It was vulnerable at 300 km/h during takeoff. You attacked during the vulnerable moment repeatedly, systematically, without respite. We could not train pilots fast enough to replace losses. We could not produce aircraft fast enough to replace attrition. We could not move bases fast enough to avoid your reconnaissance. Your industrial system provided the resources for continuous operations. Ours could not. The war became mathematical." Final statistics revealed the magnitude. Me-262 production, 1,430 total. Me-262 losses in combat, 730. Me-262 losses to all causes, 1,014. Operational Me-262s on May 8, 1945, 0. P-51 production, 15,586 in final year, 15,686 total production. P-51 losses in combat with Me-262s, approximately 250. P-51 losses to all causes, 2,520. Operational P-51s on May 8, 1945, 4,950. The Americans built more Mustangs than the Germans lost Me-262s. The Me-262 proved that technology without industrial capacity cannot win modern war. Free workers producing willingly outproduced slave labor forced to work. Democratic cooperation in production exceeded totalitarian command economies. Industrial abundance, democratic values, and voluntary cooperation buried technological superiority under mountains of aircraft, ammunition, fuel, and food. The Americans did not simply outproduce Germany. They redefined what industrial production meant in modern warfare. March 17, 1945. Oberst Wolfgang Speth had laughed at American propeller fighters challenging jets. May 8, 1945. Speth sat in a hospital bed, his flying career ended by American Mustangs he had dismissed. His mockery became history's most catastrophic miscalculation. The Me-262 program, Germany's technological triumph, was destroyed not through superior enemy technology, but through superior industrial capacity deployed systematically. Technology provided temporary advantage. Production provided absolute victory. The lesson remains: dismissing democratic nations as weak because they prefer peace or underestimating free people's productive capacity invites catastrophic miscalculation. Industrial democracies harness voluntary cooperation and unleash productive forces that command economies cannot match. Free workers outproduce coerced labor. Democratic systems adapt faster than rigid hierarchies. Nations that build prosperity in peace can build overwhelming military capacity in war. Those who mistake patience for weakness, preference for peace as inability to wage war, or democratic debate as indecision miscalculate fatally. The mathematics proved absolute in 1945. They remain absolute today.